NRL Fantasy Teamless Tuesday for Magic Round. And guys, I'm going to be heading down to Magic Round 2. So keep an eye on the Instagram, but we're going to be doing an event at the Caxton Street Brewing Co. From about lunchtime on Saturday. So come and get lunch, get a few beers, and you can win a few beers if you know your footy as well. So I'm Longy. We got Monty here too. How you doing?
Not too bad. Had a great week last week, and Magic Round's always a fun round, so keen to get into it.
Should be an absolute cracker, man. Now let's turn to these team lists first. And first up, we have Parramatta trying to get back-to-back wins for the first time this year up against the Sharkies. And in this matchup, you'd probably be backing the Sharks on history and on this year, but they weren't convincing last week. So let's see what they've done this week. So team list here, we got Kennedy at fullback. We have Stone Street, Ramian, Iro, and Mulatalo. So Iro comes back. Hiroti is out for 3 to 6 weeks. So even if Iro wasn't back, he would have been gone. We then have Trindon Hines in the halves. Forward pack is Fanua Blake, Brayley, Kafusi. Then we have Nakora, Burns, McInnes. Interchange is Atkinson, Talakai, Hamlin-Uele, and Hazelton. Look, overall for this team here, there's not too much to talk about in terms of fantasy relevant changes. What I will say for the back line is you could maybe make a case for Iro at some point. You know, he drops a bit of cash, something like that, but probably not really jumping out at me. Nico Hines, he was better last week. So in watching him play, I just sort of felt like that first 60 minutes, he was kind of playing a bit of touch footy, really. And then that last 20 minutes, he kind of woke up, right? He kind of woke up and I thought, oh, okay, that's the physical, ball running Nico Hines that we want to see. Now, we saw Isaac Tungo last week come off the bench and then, play a bit different intensity to what he had before. I'm hoping that we see the same thing with Nico Hines here. And that physicality continues into this week. So I think Nico Hines, if you're looking at a half, he's a pretty good option. He's frustrating to watch because he's got so much ability and doesn't always use it so far this year. But I'm backing him to bounce back, and I'm backing a big year for Nico Hines. So that's where I'm sitting on him. In terms of the forward pack, we got Fanua Blake right there. So Fanua Blake's around that 733K mark. He will be featured in Buy Hold Sell this week, 100%. He's a guy who, he's done it before. He's pumped out that high 50s average in the past. The minutes haven't been consistent this year. He had that groin issue a couple of weeks ago as well. So from my perspective, there's still a bit of question marks there, but the matchup here versus Parramatta is very attractive. They've conceded some very soft tries to middle forwards, and if someone's going to score one, it's probably going to be Fanua Blake. Now, Damien asked the question, is Fanua Blake going to pop off against the Eels forward pack? I would say he's a pretty good shot at popping off in this game and scoring a try, and I think he's a good option to buy this week. Rolling down the Cronulla team, if you guys talk about here, Nakora, I'll mention him as well. So he's gotten a bit cheaper, around that 600K mark. He's a guy who gets hot at the right time. And every year for the last, I think it's 4 years, he's averaged between, I think it's 49 to 52 or something like that. Like very consistent sort of average there. Currently averaging 44 this year, a bit cheaper, priced around that as well. So could be value and plays a lot of the origin rounds, but you can have a look at your team and figure out if you actually need an edge back row off around 12, because a lot of you guys are already covered with edge back row. You've got guys like Preston, Nicholson, even Kautonga, these sorts of guys. For the rest of the team, Billy Burns, he's cheap. If it was a longer period of time, we would have bought him last week, but it's only 2 to 4 weeks for Teague Wilton. One of those weeks has already been served. So a short amount of time, and Wilton likely back for round 12 makes me pretty much steer clear on Billy Burns. And Cam McInnes is a guy who he can do it at times, but the minutes aren't consistent enough. So I think McInnes is one where you could roll the dice on him and he's pretty safe. He's not going to go below 40 points. Could be a nice one to carry through the origin period, but just doesn't have that explosive upside that some of the other options have. And, is a bit more expensive than an Aaron Clark, for example, who probably does the same thing as Cam McInnes does. So for me, that's the Sharkies. I'm not really considering guys like Hamlin-Uele, Hazelton, these sorts of guys. And I don't think the Sharks are that interesting through the origin period because there's just not that many guys missing games for origin, so the forwards don't get the inflated minutes. But I will say, I think if you're picking guys for attacking stats like a Nico Hines or, an Iro or one of these guys, maybe even Nakora, they're the guys who are going to benefit because the Sharks will be full strength up against teams who are under strength. And I think they're going to light it up through this period. So that's where I'm betting on the Sharks, the attacking stats as we go through this little window of the season. Now, Monty, any questions for us?
We do have a couple of questions on Fanua Blake. We have someone who sold AFB 2 weeks ago. Would you buy him back or would you wait until those buy rounds?
Well, I'd ask you the question, why did you sell? That would be my big question there. And if those reasons that you sold are still true, I wouldn't buy him back just yet. I'd let him prove it to you. But if you just sold him because you were concerned about the groin issue and a few other things there, that looks to be pretty much overcome. I would be open to buying him back. I think his matchup versus Parramatta at Magic Round, first game of the round, is pretty cracker for him. So he's on my list. He's not at the top of my list, but he's definitely on my list of considerations for this week.
Shuey asks, is Kennedy a good wing fullback option, considering how little the wing fullbacks are scoring this year?
Historically, he's been pretty terrible in terms of fantasy production. He made that run last week, and my opinion on players doesn't normally move that much. But that run he made, where I think it was a kick return, and he sort of broke a few tackles, weaved, swerved. He went the full field himself, through a bunch of guys. It was classic Division 3 mixed Oz tag kind of energy from him. But he sort of changed my opinion on him there, because he looked like a different guy, and he wasn't playing like that the last few years. So if you're betting on him really going to a different level this year, you can buy him. I personally don't like making those bets on guys who have been in the league for a long time and have shown us who they are. So I think Kennedy is going to have a good season in real life. I like him a lot, but he's not going to be consistent for you in fantasy, so I wouldn't jump on.
And then you touched on it earlier, Billy Burns. Would you have a look at him, or would take Wilton out back in 3 weeks? You think it's a no-go?
3 weeks is best case scenario for Burns too. It could be 1 week. It could be very little. It's just a shoulder issue. So no, I'm not going to jump on Burns. If you're in a draft league, you can jump on. The issue is, if Cronulla had guys that would miss games due to Origin, let's say he played at Penrith, right, and he was filling in for Sorensen or something like that. You go, all right, well, Martin's going to miss games for Origin, and Yo is too, so he'll find more minutes as he goes along. Cronulla don't have that issue, so I'm going to say no to Billy Burns.
And then we have a couple questions in regards to Kale Iro. If Kale, I think, is a bit cheaper than Herbie. Would you pivot towards an Iro now, or would you wait to see how he returns back from this injury?
I don't like hamstrings, and I get, you can jump on straight away. But it was the same with Dylan Lucas last week. I just sort of went, let's give him a week. A 6-week hamstring injury or a 4-week, whatever it is too long for me to jump on that return game. So from my perspective with Iro, I lean towards sort of giving it a week, see how he goes. But the Parramatta matchup is an appealing one, so he could explode in this game. If you want to bet on him, you can absolutely jump on. I just tend to lean towards conservatism for that. The other thing is his break even isn't absurdly low or anything like that. He had a good, that game he got injured, I think he scored 39.5 for footy or something like that. So his break even isn't super low, super high. If you do want to jump on, you can take the risk, but I probably wouldn't jump on at this stage.
And then final question for the Sharks. Xander asks, would you buy Fanua Blake over Yo at this current time?
If you're buying one or the other, it's definitely Fanua Blake. But I'm against selling Yo for Fanua Blake. So there's people throwing that around. I don't like that. Keep Yo as long as you can. But for Fanua Blake, yeah, you could buy him over Yo, because Yo has that buy in round 11, and then round 12 is around where all the Origin players miss games too. So he's got back-to-back outs. He's backing up from Origin. Yo's not a guy that you really want to prioritize for your team through the Origin period, whereas AFB is one of the best middle forwards through that run. Now, jumping across to Parramatta here, we've got Yongi at fullback. We've got Simonson at Okara wingers. Penasini and Russell are our centers there. Then we've got Brown and Moses in the halves. Going through the forward pack here, we have Williams, Smith, Paulo in the front row. And we've got Geimer, Kautonga, and Hopgood in the back row. Interchange is Walker, Moretti, Dury, and Tuiviti. And before I go into Parramatta, I'm seeing a few messages come through. That's correct. Dave Fafita has been dropped completely. So we'll talk about that 100%. It's crazy news. What else we got? Jack Whiten in the halves is pretty insane.
Yep.
Ewan Aitken goes back to center, which is great for him losing cash. We want that to happen. And there's a few other changes that are absolutely insane in these team lists. So we'll get to all of those as well. But for Parramatta, there's not heaps to talk about here. Mitch Moses is kind of a fun pod, but he probably plays Origin, with how well he's playing. And he's not the permanent goal kicker when Lomax comes back. So I'm not super keen on Mitch Moses there as an option, just because of that Origin period. Yongi is a guy you'd hold, but I wouldn't buy him. Penasini, if I saw glimpses, I might think about buying him, but I haven't seen those glimpses yet. Rest of the back line for Parramatta, I'm not super interested in. Forward pack, Riley Smith is one that we should talk about. So he's 352K. He is a hooker who played 80 minutes last week. I like hookers who play 80 minutes. I get the score wasn't inspirational at all, but if he's going to be a hooker that plays 80 minutes or close to it most weeks, that 350K playing round 12, not a crazy option. Not a crazy option at all. I think he'll do a job, and I think his average will push into the 40s at some point if he can keep that role. So that's exciting. They're not carrying a dedicated hooker on the bench as well. So that makes me think that Riley Smith will be pretty solid here. Then for the rest of the Para pack, I mean, Geimer, I just don't trust it. He's been in and out of the team every week. So, I wouldn't be jumping on him. Katonga, a few of you guys are asking that question, so I'll let that be hit by the questions there. But Jermaine Hopgood's another one I'm watching as well. The moment Jermaine Hopgood goes back to a 60-plus minute role, I am buying. I'm leaving a middle forward spot round 12 available in my roster just in case we get vintage Hopgood, right? Keep an eye out for that. If that happens, we're jumping on. So that's one thing I'm hoping for as a para fan and also as a fantasy coach. But I'm going to need to see it first before I jump on. We just can't predict these things. And then for the bench there, Tuiviti, is there any questions coming about him?
Yes, a couple of questions with Tuiviti. Would you look to him as a cash down option?
He's not insane to pick up. The hard thing with Parramatta is they're changing so much, but he was fantastic in that last game. So back in round 7, before they had their bye, he scored that try out of dummy half, and he was looking destructive. And even at the start of the year, I'm on a Para podcast, Talking Para, absolute legends. But we've been talking about Tuiviti outside of fantasy as a prospect that we really enjoy and a guy we want in the team every week. So as Para fans, we're liking him. The coaching staff is liking him. The minutes are increasing. I do say the minutes are increasing, but they peaked last week at 33. So it's not like they're going to a different level. It's going from 10 to 17 to 33 kind of thing, right? So yeah, I don't mind him. But the downside here is, again, none of these Parramatta players are going to play Origin. Maybe Hopgood if he gets in some form, but probably not, right? So you don't really get the inflated minutes. Whereas in previous years, we got guys like Wiramu Greg, and we were jumping on him because Junior Paulo and RCG were playing Origin, right? So we were getting those inflated minutes through those Origin rounds, but now Tuiviti is probably not going to get those inflated minutes. So he's going to have to earn those extra minutes. And the issue there is Moretti is also playing well. So he's got a lot of competition there. And then Junior Paulo is the captain. Like, he's not going to get dropped. And Jack Williams is playing good footy too. If Williams went to the edge and Moretti was starting, we might have a different conversation. But Williams eats up some minutes at props. So I'm going to say, you can do it if it fits your team really well, but I wouldn't personally do it myself.
And we have a couple of questions in regards to Bailey Simonson, Charlie Geimer. Would you look at any of those two?
No.
No.
Just a flat nah. Flat nah on those guys. Just not at the right price. And the Origin schedule's not transcendent either, so I wouldn't be doing it. Now, jumping across to the Chookies and the Dolphins. So this should be a good game. Two teams who are in some interesting form, playing some good footy. For the Roosters, we've got Tedesco at fullback. We have Tupou, Billy Smith, Toya, and Mwani Tuase in the back line. Sandon Smith, Hugo Savala in the halves. Forward pack is Lenu, Watson, and White in the front row. And back row is Crichton, Wong, and Radley. Interchange, we go to Zach Docker-Clay, Fiketti, Steep, and Egan Butcher. Bit of news out that Nat Butcher is now out for an extended period of time. I believe it's about 6 to 8 weeks for him. So it's not good news for Nat. I'm a big Nat Butcher fan. Outside of fantasy, I just like the way he plays footy. Tough, but creative as well. Can chase a kick, can score a try. It's the kind of guy I'd love to have in my club, Nat Butcher. But rough go for him. He's had a rough season when it comes to injuries so far. So that's a tough one. But look, Nat Butcher, big fan. Just he's going to be out for a while. So we remove him from considerations. We bring Egan Butcher into consideration. So it's not a like for like. Egan is a factor, but he's not going to play as many minutes as Nat did. Now, when we look at that, we'll probably jump to the forward pack here first. I mean, Lindsay Collins is still out for a bit. Spencer Lenu, he'll play Origin as well. And the Roosters play those major bye rounds. So they're a team where you want to hold as many of them as you can through the Origin period. But then I counter that by saying they have a bye next week. So if you have 4 of them, you're kind of stuffed. You're in a really tricky spot. So you're probably not, desperately holding on, but you do want to have sticky fingers with these guys. So I'll go through the team, actually. Let's go from the top because Tedesco is interesting. He had that good game last week. So the 22 the week before, the 70 last week. Had 0 tries from round 1 to 7 and 2 tries last week. It's a turnaround, yeah. And he looked fantastic, but he's looked fantastic every week. He just finally got some good ball, and we saw their attack kind of clicking. I think that's a preview of what we're going to see when Sam Walker comes back.
100%.
Yeah, so Teddy, you can consider it. The risk there is he's playing such good footy, and Edwards is not playing the best that, Laurie Daly is a vintage coach. He's a new coach. He wasn't the coach last year, so he may make some changes, and Teddy could get brought back in. That's the gamble that you're taking there. So I'm personally steering away from Teddy until round 12. Then for the rest of the back line here, Toya's one we probably got to talk about. Are we getting questions about Toya?
Plenty of questions. What to with Rob Toy? He's
Yeah.
been kind of disappointed the past couple of weeks. Do you just keep holding through the bye round because centers are you plug him in your centers for round 12? What would you do with Rob Toya?
Yeah, it's been inconsistent play from his inside men as well, changing halves. He's had that one try this year, so it took him about 7 rounds to score that first try. I like Robert Toya a lot as a player, but the work rate stats have started to decline a bit too. It's not looking the best for Toya. What do you do with him? I mean, he plays all 3 major bye rounds, right? And let's say worst case scenario, he stays around the price he's at. I don't think he's going to drop below 400K like significantly. He's going to float around, but my view on this is you stick with him and you use him as a loophole basically every week. And you can do it again this week because he plays at that first night. He plays on Friday at 8 p.m. Use him in the loophole. I've had him in the loophole. I had him and Savala in my loophole and sort of ran with that. So I'd be loopholing Toya this week and, just rolling with that. But if you do need to sell him, you can. I just think the 3 bye rounds coverage is so good that you stick with him. Then I guess we'll talk about some other guys here too. Nwani Tuase is interesting. He is on the wing, which is better for him in terms of his scoring. I don't know that the Roosters will be the attacking juggernaut they were last week every week though. So 3 line breaks in that game, probably not going to happen every week, and I don't expect it to happen up against the Dolphins this week. So from my perspective, Nawa, you could buy if you're a real believer in him. If you watch him and he sets your heart on fire, then you can go and jump on. But logically, he's priced at a 37. Are you going to get, a 45 average out of him? Potentially. But that's kind of the upper end of what I'd expect, right? So he's a guy he's played, 10 games of first grade? He's cracked 50 once. It was 56. It wasn't like a 70 or an 80. So I don't know. I'm just not seeing the Roosters attack clicking enough. I get that it did last week, but I don't think in general it's going to click enough for him to dominate. I also think that they may struggle through the origin period a bit too, because they're going to lose Spencer Leniu, Connor Watson, Angus Crichton, potentially Tedesco. Like it could be messy for the Roosters through that period. So him playing those major bye rounds might be lower score games, but then maybe he takes on more and offloads more. Like he's got it in his bag. If they're playing well, he's a 50 average, but I just don't really believe in the Roosters. But if you're a Roosters believer, if you're backing him to beat the Dolphins here and all that, he's an option you could look at. Then Sandon Smith, you stick with him if you have him. You got lucky. No, I'm not going to write it off like that. He's a guy who runs the ball and he throws everything at the defense every game, and it came off for him this week. That was his first game over 50 this year, right? And he pumped out the 75 or 77. Now that was his career game, but if you have him, you stick with him at this stage. He's going to make you some cash, and you roll with that. If you sold him, I wouldn't feel too bad. Like that was a crazy game of footy from Sandon Smith. So, just move on from that. And then Hugo Savala is still a must-have. He was a must-have last week at 230K with the break-even breaking down. He is the biggest must-have this week at 277K, I think it is. So still in the 200s there. Plays all the major bye rounds. Might be tricky if you've got 2 halves already for round 12. You might have to do a little loophole move in round 12. But other than that, you're just getting Hugo Savala in your team. He should be your priority number 1. For the forward pack here, a few questions coming through. Connor Watson, is he a hold or a sell? Nafahu White, is he a hold or a sell? Angus Crichton, is he a hold or a sell? Sil Wong, is he a hold or a sell? I'm guessing all 4 of those.
I've never seen so many questions about one team. This is insane. So yes, all of them.
Let's go through them. And I'll talk about Radley as well, actually, in a sec. But I'll work through one by one. So Connor Watson is the first one to talk about here. Look, Connor Watson, I love Connor Watson. He's a very fun player to watch. But what we saw last week was a game where he had no tackle breaks, no offloads, and no attacking stats. So you had pure base. You didn't have any of that attack. You didn't have any of that base plus kind of stat. I'm trying to think of a word, by the way, guys. Let me know what you think. Because there's attacking stats, there's base stats, and then there's like offloads and tackle breaks. Like, what are they? They're not really base.
Yeah. We do need a word for that.
Actually. Yeah, like flare stats or something maybe, or we'll think of a word for it. We'll make a word, and everyone will adopt the word, I'm sure. But yeah, Connor Watson didn't have any of those stats, and they're sort of what carries his scoring a lot of the time because he's not going to make 60 tackles a week, and you don't get there on meters gained. So if I had Watson, I mean, if you have 4 Roosters, you're probably selling him. I'm open to selling Connor Watson. The thing about Watson here too, and the reason, because I had someone ask me the other day, sort of say, all right, why is your take on Watson different to your take on Ponga? Ponga's worse than Watson. I was like, well, you haven't lost the money on Watson yet. Like, he's dropped a bit of cash, but you haven't lost 200K yet. You're going early. If Watson was 500K, I'd say hold for sure. But at this stage, he's 683K. You still get good value out of him. I'd be very open to selling him. I think he's a 70% chance of making Origin. So I'm going to say sell Watson. I'm going to say hold Nafahu White. I think he's done enough. And the fact that Butcher's hurt now, that definitely helps his scoring as well. Also, there's major buy rounds. Spencer Lenu's going to be gone. Gus Crichton, Connor Watson, like that's going to boost. Like White will be a force through the Origin period. So I'd hold him for sure. Gus Crichton, I'd sell. I sold last week or the week before when he had that groin injury last week. Don't regret it. And he came out and scored a 33 this week. So those groins are sometimes a bit troublesome, but also just not a great game for him. Sandon Smith didn't really seem to pass him the ball, and that's sort of been the theme this year, and I got off when I could. And then Sua Wong, you definitely hold. He's playing nearly 80 minutes, right? Nearly 80 minutes. No Nat Butcher now as well. That boosts him up. Victor Radley is now playing lock, and there's not really someone to spell Radley at lock as much. Steep can come on and play there. Butcher can play there, but there's no Nat Butcher sitting on the bench, to eat up the Sua Wong minutes or anything like that. So I would keep Sua Wong for sure. Other guy I want to talk about here is Victor Radley, 503K. Yeah, Andrew's thinking the same thing. 503K. Everything I said about these other guys is true of Radley as well. Now, 503 is pretty cheap. I looked at the numbers for Victor Radley over the last 4 years, and the averages, last 6 years even, the averages when he plays lock and plays 60-plus minutes have been between 45 and 52, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're looking at him. He's priced at about a 37, 38, like high 30s. So if you get back to normal for him, that's 10 points of value. You also have the middle coverage, which is a difficult position to cover. And then you have the 3 major buy rounds as well. So as someone who doesn't own that many Roosters, my eyes are on Radley. I'm not buying him before his buy next week. His price isn't getting out of control or anything like that. So you don't have to rush him in. But Radley is right now, as it stands, loosely in my plans for around 10, 11-ish. Maybe an Isaiah Yoda Victor Radley or something like that in round 11 when he has that buy. So Radley's on the watch list 100%. He's a real juicy pod. Now, any other questions for the Roosters here? Because we sort of hammered today.
We did, yeah. And we have one question here. Who would you pick in your final bench spot, Savala or Sandon Smith?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I'm probably leaning towards. It depends on your tip. So if you think the Roosters are going to win this well and dominate the Dolphins, you go Sandon Smith for the upside and attack. If you think it's going to be a close game or the Dolphins are going to win, you go Savala, right? So locked up. I'm kind of putting it back on you a bit here. What's your tip for this game? Now, personally, I think the Dolphins will turn up in this game and they'll play good footy and it'll be an entertaining game of footy. But I think Dolphins will. I'm probably tipping the Dolphins in this one. So my view would be Hugo Savala. I think he's safer in terms of his base stats. It's be a bit more of a grind. Kicking game will be back. It'll be Savala over Smith for me. But if you think the Roosters are going to tear up, then go Sandon Smith instead.
And then just in regards to the tackle breaks, offloads, we've had a couple come in so far on what to call them. So we have Andrew clutch stats, supplementary stats. I like this one though. Mayo stats.
Mayo stats, like just on top.
Just a little bit of mayo on top.
Laoli.
Offloads, tackle breaks, you take them.
We need to get a Mayo sponsor.
Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Okay, Mayo stats, but we'll test Mayo stats. Yeah. It's just yeah, I'll try it for now. Mayo stats. That's a good one actually. Who was that said that?
That was Jay Karora.
Jay Karora, well done, mate. You've got the lead so far. But if anyone else thinks of a name for those stats, the offloads, tackle breaks, they're not base stats, they're not attacking stats, there's something in between. Let us know what you think. Now, Dolphins, we got Hamaso at fullback, we have Asako, Averillo, Farmworth, and Bostock in the back line. Looking at Cody Nikorima and Isaiah Katoa in the halves. Forward pack is Kafusi, Marshall King, and Molo. And then in the back row, we have Finifuyaki, Gilbert still in the back row, and Mark Nichols at lock. Noteworthy, no Max Plath this week. Interchange, we have Donahue, Stone, Lemuelu, and Kerr, who's been on a bit of a tear lately as well. An extended bench, I'm just going to note this, doesn't include Max Plath. So you got Bromwich, O'Sullivan, Keeley, Graham, and Finai. Now, Plath is probably the most interesting thing about the Dolphins for me right now. I'm sort of watching them, and the question that everyone has right now is, what are you doing at middle forward for round 12? You're pretty good in other positions, but middle forward's a tough one. Now, from my view, Max Plath, he's going to drop some cash. He'll be down to about 600K by round 12. His injury is probably going to mean that he doesn't get picked for Origin. He was already a bit of a fringe option anyway. So I'm looking at Plath pretty closely, right now. And it gets down to the right price, especially. Very, very interesting. So keep an eye out for Plath. I'll definitely mention it. He'll be in the buyers section at some point if he does make it back and look good. For the rest of the Dolphins team, Hammer at fullback is a fun pod, but he plays Origin, so no interest there. Backline is, Sarko has had runs and seasons where he's averaged 50. Hasn't had one recently. So probably not someone I'm jumping on. But if you wanted an insane, outrageous pod, you could get a Sarko. Like, you could do it. And it happens sometimes where he just has those runs where he kills it. So he's there. I'm not interested, but he's definitely there. Avarillo Bostock, not as interesting to me. Bostock is getting cheap, but not cheap enough for me yet. Herbie Farmworth is one who he had his first game under 50 points last week, a 48. So
with a try.
With a try, yeah. So
Very
it was a bit of
quiet
a quiet one for him, yeah. He was killing it early and sort of cooled off a bit. So I think Farmworth, though, like you were at round 9, he's a center, and his lowest score of the year is 48. He's fine. He's pumping. He's a Pom as well. He's a Brit, so he's not going to play Origin. Dolphins have a good buy schedule. I think, yeah, he's a solid buy right now. It's basically my answer about Herbie Farmworth is always yes. It's always yes. His price fluctuates a bit. It sort of bounces up and down. But he is just exactly what you're saying, Matt. Get what you pay for with Herbie. Lock in. He's just a spot that you don't have to think about for the rest of the season. Because he's super durable as well, knock on wood. But he is super durable. Just a really tough guy. So he'll be absolutely fine to roll with. For the halves here, Isaiah Katoa scored that 46 last week. He was a 36 at the end of the game. And I saw that and thought, oh, wow, okay. I thought he did a bit more than that. So I didn't really react to it. Didn't post it on the story on Instagram or anything like that because I sort of thought, I reckon he's going to update. And, he did, 46. And so that trend continues of Isaiah Katoa, 45 to 75, just living in that range. Doesn't have that meteoric ceiling in my view, but also is such a solid base. I'm glad we can continue to say that because a score in the 30s would have ruined that for me. But if you've got Isaiah Katoa, I don't mind him. There's been a lot of conversation about Fogarty versus Hines versus Katoa. Katoa is the safe, cheaper option. Fogarty is the safe, more expensive option. Hines is the nuclear, volatile option. So I went with Hines myself, but I'm all good with Katoa as well. Forward pack, Marshall King is one I'm getting asked about a lot. Any questions on him?
I have a couple of questions. People looking to move on from Watson to Marshall King if Watson makes Origin.
Yeah. I mean, you could do it then. You could do it now. Like Marshall King, his issue was a cut on his leg, so that's not going to be recurring. It's not a hamstring or anything like that, right? So I don't mind even making that trade today if you want to as well. That's an okay trade. Marshall King's a pod. I've got Riley Smith myself, so I'd probably JMK is a pod that has upside, but I'd probably jump on Riley Smith over JMK and use the money elsewhere. But then I think about the fact that we're going to have so much money, when we head into Origin, because there's going to be a lot of guys that we're selling who are big Origin guys who are very expensive. So maybe you go JMK instead. But he's a fun pod. But he's priced pretty sufficiently. He's not playing 80 minutes this year. So Kurt Donohue's there again. He's stealing a lot of minutes there, and Max Plath's very capable as well. So I don't mind JMK, but a few of you guys mentioned in the comments. I'll probably go Clark over JMK for sure. Any other questions there for the Finns?
We do. It's Ducky asks, is Daniel Saifidi a sell?
Oh, so Saifidi
1 to 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah. Probably not going to play Origin.
I think he is.
Even with the injury?
I was thinking he's been informed. Daniel Saifidi. He
Yep.
could get that bench spot or the starting spot.
Yep.
They use May off the bench, but I reckon he's going to pick Origin. But this injury,
Yeah.
I mean, before the injury, I was all on Daniel Saifidi.
Now,
it's tough.
He's set to play that round 12 game. How long is it? Because I think it was 1 to 3, wasn't it?
I think so. NRL physio was saying,
Yeah, that's tough. Like 1 is definitely a hold, but 2 or 3, I would look at your Roosters players on the bench and your team, because if you have 3 Roosters and Dan Saifidi, that's 4 players out next week, right? A couple of injuries as well, you'd go to 6, and you're cooked basically. So if you don't have a lot of Roosters, I would keep him. If you're looking like you're in trouble for next week with Roosters out, I'd probably think about selling. But he has made cash, and you can move him on to someone who's equivalent. He's probably going to drop off a bit. He scored that. What was he on? Was it 29? That first stint?
think so.
Yeah. He's looking good. And then also 90. He was on a good score and then sort of cooled off. So
What NRL physio 1 to 2 games.
Yeah. I would say with a bit of confidence, he's not going to make Origin though. Like I just sort of look at it and I go, right, Payne Haas, Terrell May, Spencer Leniu, definitely in the team. And then I think we have a lot of options. So we might not carry a fourth prop.
Heaps of options.
So I reckon he's like a 20% chance of Origin. But yeah, I'd probably lean towards holding him if you can. But just have a look at your team.
All that I know is Queenslanders are getting very nervous. That's all I can say.
Clean sweep.
I
Sweep
can
incoming.
already see it. I can already see it.
The trash talk starting. But I remember I said the same thing against the worst Origin team ever, and I had to eat humble pie. So you Queenslanders don't get too upset yet. You can rub it in if you win, but you won't. We'll be sweet. Any other questions for the Finns?
No more questions.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'll just mention Tom Gilbert. An absolute FU to him for turning up and pumping out big scores now that we've all sold him. Like, thank you, mate. And like, no, genuinely no real FU to Tommy Gilbert. I actually love his story, and he's had back-to-back injuries. And he's come back, and he might be in the Origin picture this year. But man, in fantasy, he was frustrating, wasn't he? Like, just a tough one to own. Now, let's keep going through this team, and a few people were talking about it as well. I think Leniu is a lock for Origin. A few people are sort of questioning that. I personally think that Leniu is one of those guys who they're just going to pick an Origin. I think the role he plays, no one else plays that role, right?
100%.
Like, and if you got Haas and May in your team, Leniu provides something different. I reckon he's locked in for sure. Now, Bunnies v Knights. This is the game, by the way, at Magic Round. So I'll be at the ground for most of the games. But before this game on Saturday, so from about midday, and during this game as well, we're actually running an event with the Caxton Street Brewing Co. So it's a competitive footy watching competition where everyone there is making predictions on what's going to happen in the game, fantasy scores, try scorers, all that sort of thing. And you can win free jugs of beer every time a try is scored if you're the one who makes the prediction that it got scored. So guys, Caxton Street Brewing Co. I'll put it on Instagram. But the Saturday from lunchtime, I'll be hanging out there. So hopefully I see a bunch of you guys there. I want to meet everyone. I want a lot of photos with everyone. And if you have to head to the game, that's fine too. But from about 12 o'clock. So we can hang out before. We can just play the game as well. And then I'll be jumping to the ground for the second game. Now, Rabbitohs v Knights. Let's tear into this team list here. If you can't drink beer, that's okay. Just come and hang out. Now, Rabbitohs. We've got Jai Gray at fullback, Bentley Hape in the wing with Aitken at centre, Campbell Graham at centre, Isaiah Tass on the wing, Whiten and Sullivan are in the halves there. Then we have Kepi, Mama, Zealous, Totola, and Kolomatangi, Duncan, and Arrow in the forward pack. LeBlanc, Hubner, Moale, and Myers is on the bench. Now, this is a bit of a strange Rabbitohs team list. I'll read into it. So Latrell's out for 1 week. Latrell is... I'm leaning towards a hold, right? I'm toying with a few trades, but I'm leaning towards a hold. He's got the Broncos and the Tigers, and then he has Origin. It's 2 games. He has a high break even, so logically he's probably a sell. I just think trying out for an Origin spot against those 2 teams who can be fragile on the edges. Latrell's going to watch the tape and be like, you know what? Me averaging 87 meters a game and 1.3 tackle breaks a game is probably a bit beneath what I can do. Yep. I'm going to wake up and play some footy, right? So I think he's going to come back and fire up, but the way he's been playing hasn't been inspirational at all. So I'm going to hold Latrell, but I'm okay with you selling him as well. It's really a personal call there. He's sort of on the fence. When he comes back, I would say he goes back to fullback. Jago goes back into the halves, and Jack Whiten goes back to center. But it's a tough one to read. Like Ewan Aitken, I thought he was fantastic in the back row last week, and they put him back to center. I thought Jack Whiten was great in the centers last week. They put him back to half. Like they're just making some moves right now, and it feels very, very unsettled. In terms of fantasy, I'm eyeing off Campbell Graham for round 13. He's getting very, very cheap. And he's a guy who has averaged 45 in the past. Injuries have obviously crippled him, but South Sydney played through the Origin period very well after round 12. So round 13, I'll look at him. Ewan Aitken going to center. Monty, we were talking about this off air. He gets cheap.
Very cheap.
613K right now. Get down to maybe 550K. He's a guy who can average 50 plus. Great Origin schedule. Ewan Aitken will be in my team with certainty. I think he's one of the best back rowers in the club. Then for the rest of the team, I'm not really considering much here. Bentley Hape scored 4 points with a try last week, so I wouldn't fall for that trap. Forward pack here. I just think there's a lot of risk to those middle forward minutes. Jai Arrow is now a lock. Tola's been playing well, but don't know if that's going to continue. Kepi, Mama Zealous is a firm hold, by the way. If few people have sort of floated selling him, and I have no idea why you're floating that. Like, if he had a different name, you'd be buying him. Right? But everyone just thinks cash cow. It's like, nah, Mamazelis is probably a hold up until round 19 at least. So just plug him in. Never think about selling him again. Then for the rest of the team, Kalamatangi's getting cheap, but not playing great footy right now. It's not getting a lot of quality ball. They're changing the halves every week. I think if Humphreys comes back and Kalamatangi is 530K, something like that, I'll consider that. How many Rabbitohs I'm going to have, right?
Yeah.
But middle forward, it's nice. Like, he covers mid and edge. So Kalamatangi's on my watch list long term. Duncan, no interest. Arrow, no interest. And Hubner is an interesting one to talk about as well. For Big Bad Hubner, yeah, what are the questions going through? I glanced and I saw Hubner's name about 8 times.
Oh, yeah. It's all here.
Yeah.
Lachlan Hubner, do you sell him or do you hold him hoping he gets back into that lock spot? Or do you think that he's kind of, you move on from?
That's a tough one. I mean, I sold him last week, right? Because I had a toss-up. I could sell Munster or Hubner. I kept Munster. I sold Hubner. What do you do with him now? He's playing this game. He might still play his 40 minutes and score you 35, 40 points. He has a great schedule following this game as well. So following round 12 for the origin period. I'd probably give him a shot, right? I'd probably give him a shot. If you've got a trade where you've got spare cash in the bank and you can trade Hubner to Aaron Clark, or, you can address an issue with your team, then you could go Hubner out. You can definitely do it. But I wouldn't be desperate to sell him, right? You can give him a chance. Maybe they make some late changes, like Tallis Duncan in the edge back row spot, Jai Arrow at lock, Hubner on the bench is a move that makes no sense at all, because what they were doing was Arrow on the edge, Hubner at lock, Duncan on the bench. And there's been nothing to change that dynamic in my head at all. So there could be a late change. We could go back to normal. I'd probably keep Hubner. If you are going to sell him for someone who plays after him so you can reverse the trade. And make sure this person you sell him for, you leave them on your bench, right? Because that reversibility of trades is really important. We've seen that with Dave Fafita, Campbell a couple of weeks ago, and Hubner, it's important as well. So I'd probably try to keep Hubner, but if you need to sell one of your cheapies, like Hubner, Toya, these guys, I'd sell Hubner first. He's the top of the sell list on that group, but not someone you're desperate to sell. Now, rest of the bench here, not super interesting. So we'll jump across to the Knights next. And for the Knights, we have a team is struggling, really struggling right now. About 10 points a game. When I read the team list, you're not going to understand why. Neither am I. But here's what we got here. So we got Kellen Ponga at fullback, Schiller, Gagai, Best, and Marzu in the back line. Fletcher Sharp, Jack Cogger in the halfback spot. That merry-go-round seems to be slowing down. Forward pack is Safidi back in the prop spot, Crossland, Thompson in the front row. Then we have Lucas, Pierce, Paul, Frizzell in the back row. Brayley, Croker, Elliott, and Jones are the rest of the bench. Now, for the Knights, I think it's important for me to recap every week the insane things they've done last week. So I'm going to recap it again. Last week, Jaden Brayley started at hooker. Phoenix Crossland came off the bench, and those two played on the field at the same time. So they were sort of experimenting with a ball-playing lock kind of thing there. It was hopelessly ineffective, as you would expect, because neither of those guys are locks. Like, it's not a diss on them. They're hookers. Maybe Crossland's a half if you want as well. But yeah, just a terrible strategy. I don't think they're going to do it again this week. So I think you can rule out Jaden Brayley pretty comfortably. So I guess what do we talk about here? I mean, Thomas Cant's out. That's bad news for your fantasy teams. I will say though, 38 points in 27 minutes. It was worth, if you held him last week, it was worth rolling the dice and seeing what happened. Like, that PPM was even better than I expected. I was thinking he might go a bit over 1, but that was a 1.4 PPM, right? So if you lucked out and you got a 40 to 50 minute roll at lock, you're looking at like a 60 average. Like, if that PPM holds, which it probably doesn't, but you're looking at a high upside player there. So it was worth rolling the dice, seeing what happened. Didn't cost you any trades. He scored nearly 40 anyway, so you didn't get hurt too much. I would sell him pretty comfortably this week, though. They're not overloaded with origin players, and they're back in sort of full strength form here. You got Adam Elliott coming back. You have Jacob Safidi coming back, Tyson Frizzell coming back. Like, it's a new look Knights team from what we've seen in the last few weeks. So Thomas Cant, easy sell, move him on. Leo Thompson is one I'm getting asked about a bit here as well, so I might as well just cover that. And sorry, I'll stop stealing your thunder. It just keeps popping up. But Thompson is one that you could hold for round 12. He plays round 12. His scoring might drop off a bit, but to be transparent, he had that 55 early in the year as well. So he was playing good. Had the sin bin last week. I wouldn't read into the score too much. I'd be open to keeping him. And look, if he presents himself as a problem, you can sell him, but he's around 12, middle forward. How many of those do you have?
Yeah.
I'm desperate for some of those. I have 0 right now. And I'm cool.
Yeah, I've got 0 as well.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm okay with it. I think there's some guys there that are interesting, but yeah, if you got Thompson, you keep Thompson for sure. The rest of the team here, I mean, I'll throw to you because the things I'm going to cover are probably the questions anyway. So what have we got questions wise coming through?
So obviously, there's a couple of questions on Dylan Lucas. Would you look to, like, just say if you had a Thomas Cant, would you reckon Cant to Lucas, or would you go somewhere else?
I like Lucas a lot. Last week I was a bit shy on him because of that hamstring return. My general rule is first week back from a hamstring injury, don't love him. Statistically, the second week back is better, but not perfect as well. So just be conscious of that. If he goes down with an issue or gets brought off precautionarily, that's something I'm going to warn you about right now. But the odds do improve in the second week. So Dylan Lucas is a stud. Scored a 49 last week with, I think it was no tackle breaks and no offload. So no mayo stats on the burger, right?
Yeah.
A dry burger with no sauce. And it was still 49, so it was a good burger. But he can do something better this week against the Rabbitohs in particular, who have completely reshuffled their edges yet again and will get cooked, I think, by this Knights team. I think it's a resurgence week for the Knights. I think this injection of middle forwards, Safidi, Frizzell, Adam Elliott, and the fact that they're versing the Rabbitohs without Latrell and, with this reshuffle is going to mean the Knights turn up. And I'm going to predict the Knights, and this is insane, 30-plus points scored.
Ooh,
yeah, I'm thinking they cook in this game.
big bounce back.
Yeah, so Dylan Lucas is going to be a beneficiary of that. We saw it in round 1 and 2, and we sort of didn't see it after that. But yeah, I think Dylan Lucas is a solid option for this week.
Now, obviously, the fullback, he's dropping like, he's just dropping. Kalen Ponga, what would you do with him?
I've talked myself just now into him being the firmest of holds. And my original thoughts on this when I was watching the game last week were, I'm going to say hold, but be okay with people selling. The more I've thought about it, the more I've decided that I'm actually not going to take that soft of a stance. I think he is the firmest hold, like, going around. And he's down to 550K. I think it's 546 exactly. Like, you've lost your 200K already. You've copped it. I didn't tell you to buy him, by the way. I don't have him in my team, so I'm not taking any claim for that. But you've got it now. You're dealing with that. What do you do from here? So he's 550K. You selling him doesn't make back the 200K, right? It feels good at the time, but it doesn't make the money back. So now your question is, do I want Kalen Ponga for 550K, or do I want to trade for someone else? And that trade is worth about 100K. So really, you're looking for someone who's going to have the same production as Ponga for 100K less. So do you have someone in mind who's 450K, who's going to produce like Ponga? You could maybe say sell one Cobbo for 3 weeks. It's a case you could make. It's not a case I'm going to make, but it's a case you could make. But I just think you stick with Kalen Ponga, right? He's not in great form at all. There's this talk that he wants out. There's all this stuff. But the bad form could lead to him missing Origin and playing round 12. I don't think it will. But it could, right? So I'm going to say hold. And when I said before that the Knights will score 30-plus points, who do you think is going to be involved in that? Like, it's Ponga for sure. Like, if I'd seen signs, like if Ponga came out last week and scored a 42 or something like that, I'd be looking at buying him this week. But he just hasn't shown any signs. Like, I'm purely in my head, like, speculating right now. So I'm not going to do it. But if you have him, hold him. And I'm going to say he goes 50-plus this week. I think he comes back. And as a non-owner, I don't want this to happen, by the way.
Yeah.
I want him to keep doing what he's doing. But I think he goes 50-plus. So I'd hold him for sure. But I guess if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I sometimes do hold guys for a bit too long and sort of believe in the bounce back. So that sometimes works for me really well. Other times it burns. So I'm going to say hold Ponga, and I'm going to say it with a lot of confidence. And he'll be number 1 on our holds list and buy, hold, sell.
Nice. And then last question for the Knights, Bradman Best. Would you continue to hold him?
Yeah, I'd hold him too. Same reason, exact same justification. So yeah, I think the Knights, I think they'll come good. Like, they're holding themselves back, and you can't do that for this long. Like, the Knights always have these stretches of being absolute garbage and stretches of pretending to be a title threat, and then go back to being rubbish. And it's not going to change anytime soon with Dylan Brown going across for $1 bajillion. And Yeah, we need a halfback. I will sign Dylan Brown there. Sorry, Knights fans, by the way. I'm a Para fan, so I've got to jab you guys every now and then as well. Now, Warriors v Cowboys. This is a good one. It's going to be a good game, actually. So these teams been a bit disrespected this year, and look, I've disrespected the Cowboys a few times. I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm turning a new leaf with the Cowboys here. So Jackson Purdue as well. He's been on my team all year, but I didn't know he was going to be this. I'll acknowledge that. I said, you keep the cheapie, right? And you just hope it turns around. Man, it's turned around more than I ever expected it would. Now, for this game, we'll go through the Warriors first. And big CNK at fullback. We've got Tuapiki, Berry, Leotawa, who's dropped 100K so far this year, which he was a pod that a lot of people were looking at. And I know some people started with him. He's been shocking for fantasy. And then Pompey on the wing. Harris Tavita and Metcalf in the halves. Metcalf killed it last week. We'll talk about him in a sec. Then Nia Corey at prop with Egan and Barnett. Back row is Capewell, Halasima, and Aaron Clark. And then interchange is Tamari Martin. Good news for Clark. Ford, Valmunga, and Afoa. So for the Warriors, probably got to address this first, right? Aaron Clark. How many Aaron Clarks have been asked already?
Oh, quite a few Aaron Clarks. Quite a few.
Okay, let me give you the numbers. So I'm just going to give you the history on Aaron Clark. So Aaron Clark was on our pods list the last 2 weeks ago and then 3 weeks ago, I think it was. So a few weeks back, he was on our pods list when he was priced in the high 30s. That was sort of a bit of a speculator. Fisher Harris went down injured. And in that game, he scored 60 plus, but only played 53 minutes. So when I saw that a couple of weeks ago, I thought, oh, that's a game where, you expect more minutes, 53 minutes. It's not the best. He was firmly on our pod list that week. He was top of the pod list, but the minutes weren't convincing, especially in a game where Fisher Harris went down. We saw Vaimalga absorb a lot of those minutes in particular, and a few other guys as well. Then the week before last week, he had the 60-minute game. He scored a 52 or 53. That's when he jumped up into the top of our buyers list. So last week he was number one on the buyers list. The 60 minutes is what convinced me. Now, last week, a lot of you guys jumped on. Obviously, he was right up there in the buy list, and a lot of you guys are thinking the same thing as I am. And he pumped out that huge score. Now, the 80 points is fantastic, but the 64 minutes is the best part of that. That was with a 4-forward bench last week. Coming to this week, and if we just drop the comment off, you can see that bench there. Tamari Martin's there. He's a bit of a non-factor when it comes to minute consumption. Then you got Ford, Vamalga, and Afoa. So you got a light bench there. We've got no Laban on the bench this week. Laban scored 37 last week, ate up some minutes. There's some extra minutes to go around. Now, I don't view those minutes going to Clark. He's not going to go above 64 minutes is my expectation. But it's just a security policy, basically, that makes him even more solid. Now, last week he was priced at a 43. This week he's priced at a 48. So I guess the question is, do you as a fantasy coach think he averages 55? All right. 55 requires about 60 minutes. Do you think he's a 60-minute 55 guy? Do you like what you're seeing? I'm seeing a lot of Warriors fans saying he's the signing of the year. So he passes the eye test. I like what I see as well. But is he going to maintain those minutes? Now, as it stands right now, I'm going to say yes. I think he can do that. He can be value, plays around 12. The middle spot's tough. He'll make a bit of cash, but he is pretty expensive right now. The downside is that Fisher Harris's injury is not catastrophic. Now, great news for Fisher Harris, by the way, and great news for Warriors fans. So the downside is fantasy, not you never wish an injury on anyone. But Fisher Harris will be back pretty soon, which is great news for the Warriors. And he's actually an option I'm eyeing off for round 12, by the way. Down to 600K, and his break-evens are huge. So he'll be like 550, 540 in round 12. Yeah, I'm on Fisher Harris for sure round 12. But he'll come back, and that then hurts Clark, right? So what I was looking for this week was Fisher Harris on the extended bench. If he was on the extended bench, I would have said no to Clark. Because he's not there. You got a few more weeks of this, and then, Clark can really establish himself. And he might sort of start to fade out. He'll make some cash, and he'll be a straight swap in round 13 if you need to do it. So I'm going to say yes to Aaron Clark, just based on this bench, based on Fisher Harris not being in the picture. He's a yes, and he's a great option. I don't think you need to tear your team apart to get him. He's priced at 48, so he's not like an insane value play, but he's a great option, and he covers a need in middle forward for a lot of teams. Monty, this one's a topical one, so I want to get your thoughts too. Do you think the same as me, or do you think a bit differently, or what's your take on Aaron Clark here?
Aaron Clark, I mean, he's done it in previous years. He can easily score above that PPM.
Yep. Fisher
Harris, same as you. It's the one concern. We're not sure how he's with Dylan Walker gone, we kind of projected Clark to, take over that Dylan Walker role, and he's done that. Fisher Harris, I mean, I'm tempted to bring in Clark this week.
Yep.
But I don't have the cash to. And then it's like, do you sell Watson for Clark? They both, I reckon, will average fairly similar.
Yep.
So it's a tough one. I don't know. It's as of right now, I'd buy Clark. I'd buy Clark. He just got that. We saw last week that upside. He offloads. He runs the ball.
Yep.
Then Fisher Harris is lurking. So
solid buy. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few questions coming through, like Suo Wong to Clark is one that's coming through. Unless it addresses positional issues for you, like you have too many edges for round 12. If you have that, then maybe. But I wouldn't sell Wong for Clark. Like, this is where you got to look at your trades and be like, all right, is this trade going to upgrade my team by 10 points a week minimum, or make me 100 to 150K?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then don't do it. So I'm going to say no to that sort of trade. But in general, yeah, he's a hot buy. Laker Halasima is a question there as well for a lot of people. He got the start last week, and we talked about this. Like, we were on 2 or 3 weeks ago, and sort of said this is what they should do, and they went and did it.
Finally,
yeah, we finally have some coaching chops, so that's pretty exciting. I'd love to work for a club, by the way, as like a stat guy and do film and all that, and tell them stuff. They just ignore me because they're like, nah, he's not tough enough. Like, it doesn't matter. It's the macros.
Yeah.
But with Halasima, he earned that spot. He's been crushing it. Played like 39 minutes last week, so it's not outrageous, but scored a 37, I believe, in 39 minutes. So the PPM was fantastic. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in this team. So I'm not buying Laker Halasima. If you have him, you definitely keep rolling. And if you have him, you consider the start for sure. So Lakers on the left side, memory. And then that's the side that Bo Firma was on last week, where he scored 109 points. Lakers playing in the same spot that Bo Firma did last week. It's got 109. I'm not telling you to start Laker Halasima over some other options, but he's a destructive attacking back rower, and there's a big ass hole on that edge. So, I probably would start Halasima if I had him, and I'm going to upgrade that from probably. I certainly would start him just because we saw what Bo Firma did last week, and Bo's in a different league, but Halasima's shown he can do it too. So start Halasima for sure. If he's on the waivers in a draft league, go get him and play him this week. But in general, the minutes last week were a bit worrying, but I just think the attacking upside this week is pretty juicy. So I can't ignore that. But there is the risk as well. And yeah, Tom mentions it too. By the sounds of it, I'm doing 10 trades in round 12. Probably, mate. I mean, there's a big watch list. So I'll make a video on this soon, but there's a long-term watch list I have that has a bunch of guys. And they have to get below a certain price for me to jump on. So like Jeremiah Nano was in that watch list. Tom Dearden was on that watch list. Ethan Strange. Like a lot of these guys that were dropping in cash, where I was sort of there's a price I wanted them to hit before I jumped on. And if guys hit that price, then I do it. If they don't, I just let it fly past. But yeah, you got to have those sort of watch lists of guys who aren't in form, because then you can get on early. Any other questions here for the Warriors, man?
Wade Egan, would you look to bring him in if he doesn't get his name has been thrown around for Origin? If he misses out on that selection, would you bring him in?
I've sort of thought about Egan. I've always thought that Egan and Coruscant would be a really good hooker combo for Origin, because they're both so explosive and attacking. And I get they're not, Robson's a bit more of a unit than the two of them, right? But I've always thought that'd be fun. Connor Watson's now in the picture, and he'll be the Origin bench hooker. So I guess the question is, does Egan usurp Watson as a starter? Not Watson, sorry. Robson as a starter. Robson played well last week. He played well, yeah, and he hasn't let us down in Origin at all. He does his job in defense. He delivers the ball early. Plays a pretty simple role. But if our halves are Moses and Cleary, then that's all you want. You want a hooker who's just going to feed it out and who can take a run when he needs to, which is exactly who Robson is. So I don't think Egan's going to be in the Origin picture. I think the fact that he plays in New Zealand actually hurts him a bit as well. Like it feels like guys who play at the Roosters and the Rabbitohs and these sorts of teams, they get a bit of an extra look in. Playing at the Warriors, he kind of gets forgotten about. But Egan's been in my Origin conversation for years now, and this is his career year. So I don't think he's going to get picked. I guess the other question is then, is he at the right price? He's sort of 700K plus. I wouldn't pay that much for Wade Egan personally. So I'm going to say no to Egan. But if you want the pod and you're willing to pay, you could do it.
That's all for the Warriors. Actually, Luke Metcalf had a good score last week.
Yeah.
Would you What are your thoughts on him?
One of the most impressive performances for fantasy from Metcalf we've seen all year. And, he can go and score 3 tries and 80 points. I like that performance better because it was pure base and mayo. And so, Metcalf, I wouldn't be buying him because we've only seen this once. I don't know if it's a certainty, but I mean, maybe he's turning the corner. If I saw it again, I'd really think about it, but I'd need to see it again. So personally, I'm going to say no to buying Metcalf. But if you're a believer in this and you watched the game last week and you think you can do that again, then don't let me talk you out of it. So that's really the wires there. I'll jump across to the Cowboys now. And for Big Drinkwater, he's at fullback. He was on our buy list last week, pumped out of 75 this week. I wish I got him. Hey, I wish I got him. Yeah, and then Drinkwater and Aaron Clark were at the top of our buy list last week. They killed it. And Sharp had a few others. I'll mention them when we get to them as well. Yeah, Drinky there. Then we got Derby, Purdue, Vilea, and Taulungi in the back line. Tommy Dearden had an electrifying game of footy last week. Jake Clifford has returned to the norm, so I'm glad none of us fell for that trap. Forward pack is McLean, Robson, Taumalolo. Then we're looking at John Bateman, Jeremiah Nanai, and Ruben Cotter in the front row, the back row. Interchange is McIntyre, Edwards, Neem, and Hess. So for the Cowboys here, look, they don't play round 12, right? So that's the one thing that you got to think about. But if you stack for round 12, which a lot of us are looking pretty good for round 12, then you can start playing around with some of these Cowboys because they miss round 12 and they play every game until round 27. So if they're not an origin player, rock is solid. Now, I'll talk about the popular guys here. I'll start at the top and work our way down. So Drinkwater is the first one. Yes, is the answer. Drinkwater, 100%. Yes. So his first half of the season, like as in so far, excluding last week, was a 45 average. He then jumped to a 55 average. Took over the goal kicking. He scored that 75, so that's bumped up even higher now. So it's going to be 60 plus over that period of time. Drinkwater's a great option. Plays through that period. He's going to get more expensive now, so now's probably the time to jump on. But just keep an eye on your team numbers for round 12. And just if you have to address that. But I'm going to say a firm yes for Drinkwater. He was in our buys last week, and that performance just makes him more of a buy this week. So red hot option. I will say too, the Warriors are playing good footy, but they are not locking down fullbacks. So, we saw Pappenhausen tear into shreds. We saw Walsh on one leg, score a try and have a try assist, even though he didn't play great. So they're not locking up the fullbacks. So I think Drinkwater is going to have a bit of a day here. Derby, I need to see that he's actually won the spot over Braden Burns. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen confirmation of that. He's also not a great fantasy scorer. So he scored a hat trick, but he's got a 5-point game in him, right? But he's a bit of a freak. So, look, I don't hate it, but we just need confirmation that he's won the spot over Burns before you do that. Purdue, it's probably too late now, but I'm loving Purdue. He's pumping, run some victory laps on him, but he's a bit too expensive now. It was fringe and it was a yes last week. It's a no now. Then for the rest of the team, Dearden is an option you can consider, but you don't really need halves most of the time. I think a lot of our teams are pretty good at half. So he's also come back in price a bit. He's had a good couple of weeks. So if you really like Dearden, you can do it. But the other thing is he is a bit of an origin risk. Like not a certainty by any means, but I mean, he's the first reserve in the halves for Queensland, and their halves are like 97 years old. So I say that as someone who's the same age as their halves, but but they're guys who have missed games in the past, and Dearden's had to step in. So if you like him, you like him. Then Jeremiah Nanai is the next relevant guy. I saw a few questions pop up on him. So for Nanai, you could do it. I mean, he's one guy who's been in my watch list. So yeah, you could definitely look at that.
A follow-up question: do you think Nanai gets picked for Origin?
That's the concern, right? It was a no until last week.
Yeah.
And now it's a maybe. So I guess let's play it out. Who are the options there? I think Bo Firma's a certainty to start. I think Jaden Sewer's a very good chance of starting as well. You have Jai Arrow, who could play on the edge.
Ruben Cotter play on the edge.
That's insane there, right? I don't think they wouldn't do that, right? But maybe. And then you've got Nanai in the picture. Dave Fafita is not going to be in the squad most likely. Then Capewell's been there before, not in great form. Pia Kura's been in the development squad, but not in great form. I think Nanai, if I was picking the team today, I'd have him on the bench. So, yeah, that's the concern there, and that's the one thing sort of leaning me off Nanai. If he was a Kiwi, I'd probably jump on Nanai right now, but he's not. So I'm going to say he gets picked for Origin. The concern there too is if you buy him in fantasy, he needs to play well to score well in fantasy. Like he's not a guy who just accumulates cheap stats. He has to score tries and make attacking plays. And if he's doing that, he's going to make Origin. So that's the issue there. So I'm going to say probably not to Nanai, but if you really believe, then you can jump on. Like he's just on that fringe where the Origin thing isn't ideal, and they've shown they're willing to give him a rest before as well.
Yeah.
So if he's backing up from Origin, I think you'll get a bit of a rest. Play half games. It's just not going to be ideal, but he is a fun option for sure. For the rest of the team here, there's probably not too much else for the Cowboys. Is there anyone else being asked about, or yeah?
No. Someone asks Ruben Cotter. He's getting real cheap with Origin around the corner. Do you look at him or
Ruben Cotter? No. Plays Origin, gets a little low minutes through the Origin period, so I'm going to say no to him. And just confirming, guys, we had a little bit of an echo before. Is it all clear now? Just let us know in the comments if it is cleared up for you guys. Now let's keep pumping through because there's some teams to cover here. So Saturday night and then Sunday games. Tigers v Dragons. This one's pretty straightforward. There's a few nice little curveballs that we can talk about here. So for the Tigers, straight up and down. Buller, Taruva, Dewey, Toa, Naden. Then we have Galvin and Luai in the halves. We've got Terrell May, Coruscant, Pole, Fainu, Seyfarth, and Twal in the forward pack. Silva, Hunt, Bird, and Fainu on the bench. These guys don't play round 12. There's not a lot of significant changes in this team. So I'm not too crazy about much of this. I'm looking at this team and I think, all right, Stafford Toa is doing his job and he's pumping out some good numbers. He's good when Galvin's in the team, basically. That's what we've sort of seen here. So Galvin's in, you can keep Toa, you could sell Toa if you wanted to as well. It's sort of up to your team. He's not a desperate sell or a desperate hold, but I'm probably holding on to him. I am open to selling him though, so if something comes up, I might do it. A few questions going through like Stafford Toa to Isaac Tungo. I think that's a big downgrade in consistency, and you make a bit of cash. So if you can use the cash, then maybe, but otherwise not really. Brent Naden is one there's a lot of questions about. Yeah. So, what do you think here, Monty?
We know what he does in the past. You can't. He's got that really low score at him.
Yep.
The way the Tigers are playing, they love to be going left, which isn't Naden's side. So I just think you're better off looking elsewhere. Naden.
Yeah. If he was guaranteed a spot though, he's so cheap. But taking a look, how long is Skelton going for? Wait, let me just see.
I had him
hamstring
TBC. Yeah. So
Skelton sort of was in and out. I personally wouldn't get on Naden because he doesn't cover around 12, and then when he does cover around 15, you're looking at a game that's 6 weeks away. Skelton will be back by then.
Yeah.
Naden's on the starting side. So I would say no for Naden myself. Just not useful for you there. New mascot is interesting. We got to stick with Piakura till he gets good, guys. So that's we're stuck on Piakura until he either gets elite, which I think I'm backing, or retires, which hopefully it doesn't come to that. Forward pack here, Terrell May is the captain. He's the captain now. Yeah.
My captain.
Yeah, he's the guy. Look, the 80 minutes 2 weeks ago and 85 minutes last week. Basically, he got subbed out last week, then came straight back on. He doesn't look tired. He had that clutch charge down in overtime. He's fine. He could play like 200 minutes if he wanted to. He could play every game of Super Saturday and he'd still be fine. A lot of you guys played footy when you were younger. Do you remember that? You play the first game, you'd back up.
Oh,
play
always,
again.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, how did we do that? That's crazy. But but anyway, Terrell may never grow out of that. So he's probably going to be my captain. I think this matchup here, so you look at him versus the Dragons. The Dragons have been pretty straight up and down, and it's meant that Toby Couchman's been pumping up big scores, but their opponents have been scoring pretty well as well. So they're the perfect opponent for Terrell May here. It's just going to be up and down, through the middle. There's going to be some points on offer. They can leak some points through the middle, but we're going to see Terrell May kill it. So I think he's the captain option unless you have a reason to go somewhere else, which you can do, right? For the rest of the team, Coruscant had that injury last week. He's come back good this week, but just keep an eye on him. Not a target at this stage, but could be a target later on if he got cheap enough, but just hasn't sort of scored low consistently or high consistently there. Backline here. Are there any safe Arth owners asking questions or?
No safe Arth owners.
Yeah, that's right. He scored the 60 last week, so you just keep rolling with him if you have him now. And the rest of the team.
Adam Dewey, what would you do with him? He had a good score last week. People are thinking of moving him on or
yeah, I mean you could
hold him.
Yeah, the Dragons isn't a bad matchup. They've been leaking some points. We saw them leak last week. I'd sell Dewey myself, but you could hold him. It's not a desperate sell. I sold him last week. I just thought, if he's not in the halves, he can score well. Like centers can pop off, but just consistently, it's going to be that sort of high 30s average instead. So he's a sell whenever it's convenient for you. Let's jump to the Dragons here because the Tigers are pretty straightforward. The Dragons have some fun changes. Now, Dragons, we got Clint Gutherson at the fullback spot. We have Sloan, Sully, Holmes, and Allen in the back line there. Corey Allen comes in for the young gun, which is a bit disappointing as a viewer. I was keen to see more for now.
Yeah.
Then we've got Flanagan and King Togia in the halves, so big change there. Also, guys, a few of you guys are sort of spamming questions. That's the only way to guarantee you don't get answered. So not a great strategy. What happens, guys, is Monty saves the questions that are good and then comes back to them at the end. So don't be stressed if it doesn't get answered straight away. Most of them will get answered or a similar one will get answered. Now, for the forward pack here, Couchman, Cook, Clemmer. Then we have Dylan Egan back in the starting spot where he belongs. And Sewer and Hamish Stewart gets the lock spot. Jack DeBellin appears on the bench with Jacob Little, Gula, and Leilua. So this is a pretty interesting set of changes. The backline really isn't that interesting to me. Corey Allen he hasn't really played meaningful footy in a long time. So I'm just going to quickly check his price.
I think Tui Pilotis should be back either next week or the week after.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks now. So Corey Allen's 300K as well. So not even a 230K. I was just sort of thinking maybe if he's 230K, you have a think about it. And, no to Corey Allen. But Val Holmes will probably play Origin as well. So that takes him off the list. Gutherson's getting nice and cheap. So he's a guy I've got on an extended watch list, maybe for round 13. Yeah. Probably not going to do it, right? Because he's getting cheap because he's not scoring well. So, that big game against Parramatta that he's pumped out like back-to-back 24-point games pretty much. So it's not been ideal. Forward pack here, we've got to chat about Couchman. Actually, sorry, got to go to the halves. Lycan King Togia. I almost skipped over that. And Kyle Flanagan as well. So Lockie Ilias has been dropped from the team. It's not an injury. It's not a temporary thing. He's been dropped from the team. They've talked about this for a while, him potentially being dropped soon. So I would view this as something that's going to stick for quite a while. So that then just means, all right, what's going to happen in the halves? King Togia, we had a look at him before. We got a bit of inside mail that he was going to be the starter. Just wanted to wait for this before posting. I've been burned a few times posting on Instagram early. But he's the starter there. Reserve grade numbers weren't exceptional. I mean, there's not a huge sample size. It's like 10 games in the halves in reserve grade. He was looking more like a 40 average kind of guy, 45 average in reserve grade. Had a bunch of tries in that as well. So that's great for attacking stats there. But kick meters were quite low. So at 5'8", the average, I think it was like 45 kick meters. And at halfback, it was a 245. He's been named at the halfback spot. So whether you think that represents something, it's kind of up to you to read into. But from my end, I don't know. He's coming to this role. And look, we've seen Kyle Flanagan not kick the ball basically at all. And Lockie Ilias take that entire responsibility of being the halves for the Dragons. So are they going to bring the rookie in and give him that responsibility as well? It's two options in my view. It's either King Togia is 50-50 with Flano when it comes to the kicking, or Flano does it all. Now, Flano was named at halfback. We'd be talking about Flano as a potential buy option. Because if he was kicking everything, Flano's a guy who has averaged high 40s in the past. But named at 6 kind of represents to me that he's going to keep a similar role and just do a bit more kicking, which kind of makes him not that interesting. For King Togia, you can buy him right now or you can give him a week. Like my view on this is he's not going to be a transcendent, fantasy option. If it suits you to get a cash out at 230K, do it right now. If you want to wait a week and see what he does, give it a week. Doesn't play round 12, and really not a lot of job security. Like they were talking about dropping Ilias, and there were multiple reserve grade options they were talking about bringing up. Yeah. So it's not like he was just the guy they're bringing in. It's not like he's a fantasy pedigree either. So I like him. If it suits your team, cash out, but don't tear your team apart to get him. If you want to give him a week, you can give him a week as well and just see him in person. Now I'll be at Magic Round. I'll be pretty sloshed by 7:45 p.m. on Saturday, but I'll do my best to pay a lot of attention. And I guess I'll watch all the games later anyway on TV because I love to do that. So that's him. I'm into it. I like it, but don't tell your team apart to get him. Forward pack here is Couchman. 44 points this week.
Yeah.
The couch. And yeah, like the Couchman last week, it was the first week where he wasn't on our buy list.
Yeah.
Since about round 2.
Yeah, wow.
And or discussed as a buy. So last week was the first week I sort of said, all right, it's kind of too late now. Like, you don't want to jump on. The fact that all these guys returned. So we saw Gula come back. We had a few players come back, and the week before we had Hamish Stewart get the HIA and that kind of thing as well. So yeah, Couchman had a drop off in minutes, 44 points in 50 minutes. I think that's an irregularity. So I'm a non-owner, so I'd love for that to continue. But being serious, I think it's an irregularity. I think he is a PPM guy, PPM plus.
Yeah.
I think he's like a 1 to 1.1 PPM. So worst case scenario, as a Couchman owner, you're going to get 50 minutes out of him. You get 50 to 55 average. Best case, you get sort of 60 minutes every now and then. You get a 60 and a 70-point score. I think those will be scattered in. So I think you can say with a bit of confidence he's going to average around 55 at the worst and 60 at the best.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I viewed him. He's priced at a 56 last week. He's gone up a bit of cash, so maybe a 57, 58. You stick with him for sure. Ride the wave. He's got good Origin schedule. He's not going to play Origin. People are worried about that. Don't be. Yeah. They don't pick Origin based on fantasy, so we're going to be safe there. But yeah, you stick with him if you have him. And if you don't have him, you just hope that this continues, because you look at this forward pack and you go, all right, Clemmer's getting 40-plus minutes now. He's not just the start and leave guy. Blake Laurie is removed from this bench, right? Yeah. Hamish Stewart is starting at lock. DeBella and then maybe in the prop rotation. That would be terrible for Couchman. That would be terrible. Emre Gula played 40-plus minutes last week as well, and Luciano came on. Egan didn't get his middle minutes last week either. So those could go back to Egan too. Egan has been impactful in previous games. There is a bit of risk here, but this is the Dragons forward pack. It's very hard to read. I'm generally going to say hold is the answer to basically every question about the Dragons forward pack. And I'm going to say no to buying any of them, basically. Like Hamish Stewart, you're not going to buy him. I think he's got a pretty high break even because he scored that. No, he had the 27. Yeah. So it was 11 minutes. I was thinking about that, but he scored 27 points in 11 minutes. But yeah, see what Hamish Stewart does. If Stewart comes out and plays like 60 minutes at lock, which I don't think will happen.
30 break even Stewart has.
Yeah, give him a week, see what happens. But in general, I just think you got to sit and watch. It's so interesting though. Like, it's very interesting watching this Dragons team because they just keep changing things up, and then they beat the Storm and they lose to Parramatta, and then they're fun to watch. They're sort of entertaining to follow along. But any other questions about the Dragons there?
About those guys you said.
Yeah.
Would you sell any of them?
No. Hold. Dylan Egan, especially. I'm getting a lot of questions in the DMs about Egan. And if you guys aren't on Discord, by the way, the Discord is awesome. Nearly 3,000 people in there now. So I'm getting a lot of trade screenshots with Dylan Egan out. And I'm going to say no, do not do that. There's every chance that he goes back to his original role. We've seen one game where he started on the edge and played like 50 minutes, scored 32. Everything else we've seen from him has been near PPM or 80 minutes. So it's an irregularity I wouldn't stress.
One game.
Yeah. And the upside of him is that he's this keeper through the Origin period, and you sell him in round 19. That's ideally what I want to do with Dylan Egan. So I'm gonna hang on as long as I can.
Just one more question. Darcy asks, is it too late to buy Egan, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So the hold is because you've already used the trade, but don't buy him. No, don't buy any of those Dragons forwards right now. Titans Dogs next, and we're into Sunday games. So we got Jalen DeGroot, and after Sunday games, by the way, we'll do trade questions as well. The Titans, DeGroot is at fullback, Camprera, Kelly, Sami for feeder. Then we have Brimson and Weaver in the halves. Forward pack is missing a name. Drop it in the live chat if you know who I'm talking about. Drop his name in there, and if you say it before me, you win. Forward pack, Fodawaker, Verrills, Campbell Gillard in the front row. Campbell Gillard has been hopeless for fantasy this year. He's a gun player, so I think he's going to bounce back at some point. It's like, can you pick when? Randall in the back row is just perplexing to me. Like, it is insane. I love him as a hooker. I love him as a middle forward off the bench. I have no idea why he's playing edge back row. Bo Firma, the 100-point man. And then we got Tino at the 13 jersey. Interchange is Cleese Haas, Isaac Masuali, We got Howe and Pahulu on the bench. We saw Brock Gray, unfortunately, go out with an ACL injury last week. He doesn't have fantasy implications, but just sad to see a guy who's sort of starting to crack into the team.
Yeah.
Go down with that. Same with Ryan Couchman earlier. Like we've seen a few of them this year, and
Yeah.
it sucks to see. I don't love seeing it at all. But the extended bench includes Dave Fafita in jersey 19. Insane. So last week we saw the Titans run out a brilliant strategy of running Fafita off the bench in the middle forwards and keeping Chris Randall on the edge against. Was he against Nanai? He was against Nanai, yeah. Who had his had his season's best game, dominated. Yeah. Right, so that was a great upgrade. Good job. Let's keep that going. They conceded 50 points, and they've now dropped Dave Fafita on the back of playing him in the middle forwards. Like, I just don't understand this. I get that Fafita's not the perfect player, right? He's not the perfect player, but he's a beast. He's a beast. There's a reason he's been $1 million forward in this league, and you just chuck him in the edge back row spot. You start him. If he looks gassed, you give him a rest. That's it. I'm not an NRL coach, but that's pretty straightforward. Like, you got him and you got Bo Firma. That should be your strength. And they just keep messing around with it. And I don't know what's happening at training or whatever that is, but I still think he's almost good enough just to let him go. On that game he played in the back row, where they gave him 65 minutes, he killed it. He absolutely killed it. He nearly won that game. So, like, yeah, just really, really crazy. So if you've got Dave Fafita in your team, what do you do? Like, you know what he can do. Yeah, you know what he can do. You're going to want him back later. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'd consider selling if I had him.
Yeah.
I'd think about it. Like,
at this rate, you just can't trust Des Hasler. You just can't.
Yeah, and he's dropped. And it's not like he's dropped from the starting team and he'll be back in the starting team later. He's dropped from the bench. He'll be back on the bench. He'll have to earn his stripes via 3 weeks on the bench. Like, his break even's not great because he had a 23 break even last week. He scored a 26, so it's sort of come back to normal. Like, I would probably sell Dave Fafita. But if you're a believer and you think he comes back next week and Des Hasler sort of puts the booze down for a second and picks the team sober for once, like, no, I don't think he's a. By the way, just a joke. I like Des, but it's just insane. It's crazy. So, yeah, I guess we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But if you have Fafita, I'm probably selling him. Are you thinking the same?
Yeah, I think you just can't trust Des Hasler. He could be named in the reserves next week. He'll be named to start, but then gets pushed back to the bench. It's the last thing you need in fantasy.
Play center again.
He could play center again. You just never know. So I think you just cut ties and sail them off into the sunset.
Yep, exactly. And their upside is hurt as well by the fact that there's no Jaden Campbell there too. Also conceded 50, so can't win the comp this year, which will be demoralizing for all of them. For the rest of the team, though, I mean, you got Brimson, you enjoy him. De Groot, I think, has looked better in real life, so I think stick with him. Fantasy scores haven't been great, but he's looked more and more confident over time. So you'd hold on to him. Forward pack here, I'm probably going to talk about Bo Firma, probably the only relevant one. Tino's good, but he plays Origin, so you're not jumping on him. Bo Firma, look, he was 609K last week, and there was a lot of people asking about selling him last week. I remember we were fighting off people in the live chat, like, don't sell him, don't sell him. He's good. Good. You got a month before Origin, and hopefully you guys all listen to Monty and I then. But now is he a buy? The 109 doesn't really change my view of him. Yeah, it just changes his price. He's just, instead of 609K, it's 658K now. So you're paying sort of full-ish price for him, that high 40s price. Is he a 55 average? Is probably the follow-up question. Plays Origin as well. He feels like the kind of guy who would back up from Origin, but the concern with him in Origin is he's so good that he probably locks down an edge for a full game in Origin. And then he's up against Liam Martin, Angus Crichton, Hudson Young. You know, one of those guys, or a combination of those guys. Not a soft game. You know, Terrell May, Payne Haas, he's going to come back feeling it because Queensland definitely aren't oversized when it comes to that forward matchup. So I wouldn't buy him for the Origin period. I'm going to say you've missed it. You've missed it. I just think, like, that 109 is fantastic. It doesn't really change my view of him. But he's a gun and he's at a good price. So if you think he's going to back up from Origin, then he's a solid option. But I guess I'd probably say to you, Dylan Lucas over Bo Firma. And I know it's hard to say. Like, you look at one, he scored a 109 last week, and you've seen the highlights. The other one scored 49 last week. The 49 was with nothing, right? So Lucas over Firma with certainty, round 12 coverage, doesn't play Origin. It's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Same?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I reckon, and with Fermi, he, as we saw, he can move to center,
Yeah.
and that's the last thing you want after buying in this week.
Yeah.
So it's just he's definitely someone you target later on.
Yep.
But now I think you just wait it out, let all the Firma owners,
Yeah.
enjoy the time, and then you can hop on later in the year for sure.
Yeah, they're loving it. They're loving it too. So if you have him, by the way, congratulations on holding.
Huge.
You were a genius, and that's what we talk about. When we talk about holding guys and then bouncing back, Bofum is a perfect example of that, right? Like you buy a guy because you've analyzed them. You need to trust yourself a bit more, right? So easy one there. Any other Titans questions? We roll through.
Tino, would you look at him? But with Origin around the corner, I mean,
no. Let's go to the Dogs. So Connor Tracy at fullback. We got Carraz, Zeri, Crichton, and Montoya in the back line. Bailey Harewood goes back to 6 for Matt Burton, who was out for 1 week. Toby Sexton in the halves. We have Max King with Reed Marnie in the front row, and then Saluka Fafita gets a spot back. We got Josh Curran out for 3 weeks. So Saluka Fafita comes back into the starting side. We have Viliami Kickout, Preston, and Salmon in the back row. Then we have Mann, Hayes, Moran, and Taff. Taff or Moran, you can talk about whoever you want there, but probably Moran is the one who comes in for Tupanua, who's out for 5 weeks. I thought Tupanua might miss more time than that.
Yeah.
To be honest, like watching that. But 5 weeks is still a pretty long period of time. So you've got some interesting things at play here. No Matt Burton for 1 week. Matt Burton scored nothing last week, basically. So Burton's going to be the cheapest man on the planet by round 12. And one of you guys said before, I'm going to use 10 trades in round 12, make it 11 because I'm getting Matt Burton as well. He's going to be so cheap. Like that's what you want. You want to buy, but he hasn't been goal kicking, hasn't been doing a lot of general play kicking. So just keep an eye on the roll. I kind of want to see the roll turn around a bit before. And luckily, he scored so low that the break even is going to be high. We get to see that happen before round 12. For the rest of the back line here, a lot of people talking about Carraz. Carraz is kind of at the bottom of my list of those wing fullbacks that I was looking at last week. So I'm going to say, I don't know, Carraz. He was on 3 at halftime last week, ended on 36. Good second half. And first half, they got pounded in the rain. Second half, he played in a game that was more competitive, and he showed you what he can do. So, look, Carraz is fine. If you have him, you stick with him. But I actually think it's weird to say he scored 36 in a week where the other options all went 50 plus. But last week actually upgraded him in my mind because he kind of played average and he's kind of downgraded a bit in the Origin list in my head. Like he had quite a few errors in that game and sort of struggled a bit, and Dogs struggled in general. So I think that pushes him a little bit further away from that Origin jersey. Turbo's back. Maybe he plays on the wing. I'm not getting Carraz, but just a little bit less confident he plays Origin now after seeing that. So if you're an owner, you're happy with that. For the forward pack here, Max King gets a huge upgrade. So King, what we saw last week was what I was kind of warning you guys about. When they're at full strength, he's going to drop back to being maybe a 50 guy. He scored a 42. I think that's a bit lower than what you'd expect. He played 51 minutes. He's usually a PPM-ish guy. So 50 average when they're at full strength. Luckily for him, Josh Curran went and got himself suspended for 3 weeks. And I feel like whenever I'm right about a player, Nafahu White, Max King, all that, they just there's like miraculous injuries and suspensions that prove me wrong again. So if you got King, you ride the wave and enjoy him. If you don't have him though, that 3-week suspension actually makes him much more attractive to me. So you could do it, you could get on, but he eventually will return, I think, to that sort of mid-ish numbers. I just think there's some other options that are pretty cheap as well. Like when they're at full strength, I actually think there's only about 5 to 10 points between him and Victor Radley. And it's 250K difference, right? So to me, I'd rather sort of take a specky and just have my pure guns, Haas, May, these sorts of guys. So I'm not super keen on Max King, but I think he's going to have a great 3 weeks. So if you want him, jump on. Next 3 weeks will be fantastic. Then Reed Marnie is dropping minutes like crazy until something happens to turn it around or he moves clubs or whatever it is. Don't jump on. But if you have him, you sell him. And I'm just going to watch the prices keep dropping and hope. Kickout, Preston, they're guys. Kickout, a few of you guys have been shouting him out as a bit of a pod. I don't think the scoring is consistent enough. Like he's one of those guys who needs to have big attacking plays to crack 50. He has big attacking plays in him because he's a great football player. But I like my players who score without effort a bit more. So I'm more leaning towards Preston, who sort of can play average and just get his work done and pump out a 50. So I'm more of a Preston guy myself. Then the rest of the Dogs team, I mean, you could talk about minutes being vacated by Tupanua and Curran. Definitely have that conversation. Harry Hayes is one that's been popular in Discord right now. He's 500k.
Yeah, wow.
500k, he's expensive. Like Hayes is a bit of a beast, so you could look at it. I'll think about it before buy, hold, sell. But right now, I'm thinking it's a bit too expensive. Anything else for the doggies here?
Would you still buy Preston, or do you think that's past?
No, yeah, he's fine. He's not. His price hasn't changed that much since everyone else bought him a few weeks ago. So yeah, I think he's a great option through Origin, and he won't make Origin.
And Matt Burton, would you hold him, or would you look to see?
Yeah, hold
cash chopping.
Hold. Yeah, he's dropped cash already. He's going to be great through the Origin period. Your trades are valuable, so definitely hold him.
And Toby Sexton, would you look to buy him with all this kicking responsibilities? Or?
It's too late now.
Yeah.
It's a bit late now. He's pretty expensive now, and there is downside in him as well. So if Burton comes back and plays Burton footy, that will hurt Sexton a lot.
Yeah.
Then we've got the Panthers and the Broncos up here. And for the Panthers and the Broncos, we have Dylan Edwards, Alamotti, Tungo, Garner, Jenkins, Talangi, and Cleary. In the back line here, Leota, Summerton, Henry, Sorensen, Martin, and Yo in the forward pack. Then we go to Talau, Papali'i, Smith, Gaia. So for this Panthers team, we're not heaps to talk about here. Casey McLean is obviously out of the side. So that's big news. Tom Jenkins is on the wing there, so he keeps his spot. Probably makes me think that when To'o comes back in, he will be on the wing and Jenkins will go to center. McLean's on the extended. To'o isn't. Dean Laurie not being in the team is kind of strange to me, but I would have thought they'd go Jenkins to center and Laurie to the wing. I haven't won 4 comps in a row, so I find it hard to trash Ivan Cleary, but I do think some of these choices have been strange this
Especially
year.
this year,
Yeah. So, but I give him a bit more leeway than I think most coaches. But other than that, Tungo is 400k. He'll be in our buy hold sell video this week in the cheapies section. I'm kind of stretching it out to include him because I've liked what I've seen the last game and a half of footy from him. Dylan Edwards, I think, makes Origin, but if he doesn't in round 12, we can look at him. But until then, don't do it. Nathan Cleary, you stick with him until round 11. You think about it then. I'm probably going to hold him, I would say, but they need to win games, and he'll probably keep playing. Then forward pack here, Sorensen might be suspended for 2 weeks. They're disputing the severity of that one. If he is suspended for 2 weeks, we might see what I talked about there, Laurie coming in, or we might see Papali'i getting start. But really, other than that, I think it's a pretty firm hold on all of these Panthers players. So I'm guessing there are questions about Jenkins, Cleary, Yo. Yeah, they're all holds. Hold until round 11, then look at it then. And Tungo, if you want a super pod, he is a super pod. But I'll give you more insight on that one and buy, hold, sell. So I think that pretty much covers the Panthers there. Then the Broncos, Selwyn Cobbo, Mariner, Stagg, Shibasaki, Arthurs, Hunt, Reynolds here. Then we look at the forward pack, Carrigan, Walters, Haas, Willison, Ricky, and Hetherington. Interchanges, Pakes, Jensen, Piakura, and Hunt. Again, for the Broncos here, Cobbo, really fantastic in that last game. Pumped out a 47. A bit of goal kicking, but yeah, I liked Cobbo in that game, and I think he's a bit of a specky you could take. He had a high break even, so there's no rush last week. Panthers a good matchup. If you want a wing fullback pod, I don't mind Cobbs. Yeah, and it's probably only a 3-week rental before round 12. Doesn't play round 12, but I think he's got a bit of nuclear upside in him. So I'm a Cobbo fan. I will consider it this week. He'll be in the video as a pod there as well. Rest of the team, Shibasaki, Arthurs. I think it's time to move them on. They don't play round 12. It's sort of maxed out. And then Reynolds is big score, but carrying that injury, he's not super fantasy relevant. Payne Haas, great game last week. Pretty much pure base stats except for the try assist. He was awesome. He'll be up for this one as well against the Panthers. They hate the Panthers after 2023. Yeah. So, I think Haas will go well this week. And if you want to captain him over Terrell May, you can. But I'm sort of leaning more towards Terrell myself. But the fact that Willison is out of the front row rotation is kind of good news for Payne Haas because Willison was sort of stealing some of those Payne Haas tries previously. And they're similar bodies. Like Haas is a different beast, but they're similar body types. So I think Willison being in the back row actually helps a lot because Jensen doesn't do what Haas does. Yeah. Hetherington and Carrigan don't either. So, Payne Haas could see an upgrade in minutes over time, but I would expect sort of 65 minutes in this one. So he'll be solid. Willison is a fun one. I'm going to preempt that question too. I'm sort of speeding up now because I've seen the time where kind of going a bit over time. But Willison is a fun pod. The risk here is Jaden Hunt, Piakura could steal minutes. So 80 minutes last week was awesome. He plays 80 minutes or close to it at forecast of 45 average. If he plays less minutes, it's not as good. Doesn't play round 12. But at the same time, round 15, when they do play, Carrigan and Haas will be out. So he'll have a good score then. But then they don't play round 18 from memory. So if he had a better buy schedule, I'd be onto Wilson. If he played 12 and 15, I'd be buying him with certainty right now. Doesn't play 12, doesn't play 18. If you like the pod, though, you believe in Wilson, just go watch the first 5 minutes of the Dogs game and see that try as well. It was slick as he looked really good. Anything else for the Broncos here?
How cheap will you let Piakura drop to? Well, we were talking earlier, 290, wasn't it? I think.
Well, he's 230.
230.
He's 230. Oh, sorry, 240.
240,
yeah. So, there's no cheap. There's no number. Yeah. It's just, do you think he's going to do anything? And on the bench, no. Wilson played great. Wilson dominated. Piakura is now the fourth string back rower in this team. He's going to be the mascot for a while, I think, with how this is looking. So, I'm going to say no to Piakura.
Final question for the Broncos. Corey Pakes. If you had him, would you move on?
Sell. Firm sell for Corey Pakes. Now, let's round this out. We've got the Storm and the Raiders, and then we'll go to some questions. And we've got the Storm here first, Pappenhausen, Fairlongo, Anderson, Meaney, Coates. Then we go to Munster and Hughes in the halves. Munster killed it last week. Forward pack, Katoka Manu, Garlic, King. Then we have Blore, Katoa bounced back from his low game as well. And Loiero has been good, but just not convinced. Then Wishart, McDonald, Kamitha Mitha, and we've got Chan on the bench there as well. So for the Storm, noteworthy things to talk about here. Pappenhausen retained the goal kicking with Nini coming back. Big upgrade to Pappenhausen. That makes him relevant. And he goal kicked while Meaney was out, but all of a sudden, he's now the goal kicker in the team. Meaney was coming back from a facial injury, so it didn't affect his legs or anything like that. You can't say it was a temporary thing. I think Pappenhausen, if he's fully fit, is their goal kicker. So Pappenhausen is a guy who I actually don't think he's a crazy one to target even now. So if you like him, you could jump on that. Then Cam Munster, he had his bounce back game, first game over 100 meters this year, which is absurd to say, but I'm going to say it. For Cam Munster, I've got him in my team still. I've somehow held on to him. I've ranted and raved, and every week I just go, let's give him another week. That was a good game. I think that game was 62 without major attacking stats, just a line break. He had 8 tackle breaks and 100 plus meters run. So Munster, I think, is on the bounce back. If you can back it up with another 100 plus meters run, awesome. But I'm not going to keep him through the origin period. So it's a bit late. He's got 3 weeks to make it up to me, and then he ships off for someone else. Jerome Hughes is one that we definitely have to talk about here, 560K. I want to highlight a few stats for you guys. So Jerome Hughes, 2024, was averaging 125 meters run and 4.3 tackle breaks a game. Those numbers are way down this year, and I'm only looking at 80-minute games, way down to 75 meters run and 0.3 tackle breaks a game. So 4.3 to just 0.3. So he's carrying that shoulder injury, comes up with it a bit, just not running as dynamically. Physically, he's not quite there yet because he's carrying that issue. And they're winning games, so they don't really need him to throw himself at it. So Jerome Hughes is one we're going to buy before the origin period, 100%. It's a question of when. You could do it now. Canberra can leak some points, but we haven't seen the turnaround yet. So he may continue to score those 40-odd games. If they get up to a lead, then he may get a rest. That's the risk there. But I think 560K is close to as cheap as he's going to get. If I was going to tip it, I'd say maybe 530, 540K is the bottom for Jerome Hughes. But at the same time, with these kinds of guys like Hughes, you want to get on before the explosion game.
Yeah.
And Canberra could be that explosion game. So this is your call. But I'm kind of into the idea of getting Jerome Hughes this or next week. Forward pack here, Garlic is not doing great as the starter, so just don't target him. Taka Manu's minutes have been up and down and up and down and down and down. So not the best either. Bit of an origin threat as well. Just 'cause I think playing at the Storm kind of elevates you a bit too. Eli Katoa is getting a bit cheaper, so it could be an option around 13 that I consider, but he needs to get a bit cheaper than this. And then guys like Blore, Loiero, they have their games, but they're not of interest to me, and the bench is of no interest as well. So I'm guessing we don't have too many Storm questions other than that.
Harry Grant, what would you do with him? Would you hold him now that you've held him for a couple of weeks, or would you move on with
Sell,
Origin?
and I'm shocked that you kept him this long. Firm sell. Let's go to the Raiders here, and we'll round out. So Raiders, we've got KO Weeks at fullback. We have Tamale, Tomoko, Chris, and Savage in the back line. Strange and Fogarty in the halves. And we go to Horsburgh, Starling, Tarpanay, Young, Nicholson, and Smithies in the back row. Interchanges Paddy, Hosking, Papali'i, and Mariota. So for this Raiders team, a few things to talk about. They've been pretty fun to watch recently, I will say. They've been very, very entertaining. Now, for the Raiders, there's guys here who are really hot and cold. So you've got guys like Tamale, Tomoko, Savage is very up and down as well. A lot of these guys are sort of popping off here and there, but they're just hard to trust. And if they got cheap enough, you'd think about it. But other than that, not super keen. KO Weeks as well. Fogarty is probably the one to talk about here. I am less keen on Fogarty now than I was when we originally recommended him because he's 50K more expensive.
Yeah.
And he's exactly the same guy. He's exactly the same guy as he was when he was 690K. And now he's 740K. So like, I'm just going to say no to him. Personally, I'm leaning more towards going like a Nico Hines or, one of these guys who's actually cheaper now and has, I think, more upside than Fogarty. So I'm going to say no to Fogarty. I think you're too late. You missed the big score. I wouldn't jump on. Forward pack here. Horsburgh is a hold. I've had to say this every week. It's crazy I'm having to talk everyone out of selling Horsburgh every week.
Yeah.
His scores until last week were between 48 and 58 every single week.
Yeah.
It's now 48 and 61. So the man hasn't stepped a foot wrong.
Yeah.
Like he sits there in the middle forwards next to Payne Haas and Terrell May in your team, so he looks worse by comparison. But he's fine. Horsburgh's not your problem. Wait until round 12. If he gets picked for Origin, we sell then. If he doesn't get picked for Origin, which honestly, it's like a 10% chance that he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's not likely, but it's a chance. Then, we're happy days. We keep him. Tarpanay is expensive, but good. That's my answer there. I'm not breaking my team to get him, but you're paying top dollar for him. Matty Nicholson is such a hold, and I don't want to see any more screenshots of people selling Nicholson. He's a hold through this period. He's a POM. He's been in good form, attacking upside as well. Hosking, I was hoping we'd get a bit cheaper, but he just has not gotten cheaper. He's scoring tries, and So really for the Raiders, I think it's pretty straightforward. But I'll throw to you any other questions on Canberra.
No, you kind of crushed it. Corey Horsburgh you'd buy, obviously.
Sorry, you just on mute there, mate.
I think so.
Yeah, right. It's all good. I covered the questions there. So that's super, super easy. So any other questions, guys, for trades now? Have you got any trade questions?
Let's have a look. We did have a couple come
Sorry, one
through.
sec. You're still mute. You've muted yourself.
Go. I think it was echoing last time.
Okay.
That's why.
All right, cool. Let's see any trade questions. I'll just grab them if we have an issue there. So Gus and Brimson out for Lucas and AFB. I think these trades are fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I wouldn't be selling Brimson myself, but Lucas and AFB is a big upgrade. So yes, I'm cool with that. Wong to KPP. I think that's super sideways. KPP is a bit better. But Wong has an awesome Origin schedule, so I would keep him. What other half to get if no Fog? I would wait for Matt Burton in a few weeks' time. Nico Hines right now is a really good option, I think, has big upside. So those, or you go for Savala if you don't have him. Like there's other options that I think are better value. Then thinking of trading a couple of these guys, White, Jenkins, Watson, and Toya. Watson's the number one there. I would keep White. I would probably keep Jenkins and Toya. Maybe Jenkins or Toya, but I'd definitely keep White there and probably sell Watson. Paddy, a buy? No, the minutes aren't good enough. Watson and Hubby for Togia and Lucas. Yeah, those trades are okay. Should have a bit of cash spare. We're doing that as well. Starling a buy, firm no for that. The minutes are a bit dodgy, and he's not the future hooker at the club, so I don't see it. Plath to Clark, I wouldn't do that one. I think Plath is an awesome option for round 12, so I would keep him, and you've already held anyway. Who to trade Munster to? Munster just made 20K. Why are we trading Munster? Keep Munster 100% this week. Sell him around round 12. So, guys, I think just to sum up, because there's a lot of questions going through, I think a lot of you guys are really trying to find trades to make. And, you're like, can I sell Cam Munster? It's like, just relax. Take a breath. I'm going to try not to trade this week. And I'll probably make a trade, maybe one or two. But I'm going to try not to trade. I'm going to keep Latrell. I just reckon there have to be weeks where you sort of back yourself. And this week, we don't have many trades we've been forced into. you haven't had that many catastrophic injuries. You guys have scored low, and I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people looking at their team and going, these 3 guys didn't score that well. I'm going to sell them. It's like, it was 1 week. I think just take a breath is the answer there. The buys this week as well aren't rock solid. I think there's some better buys coming up. So if you fill up your team for round 12 now, you're going to be in a tricky situation in round 12 when you want to get some of these other guys I've talked about. So that's why I'm talking about these future buys, because I think you need to save a few spots for those guys instead. So my view is, if you have a trade that can get you to Aaron Clark or something like that, like you could do a Stafford Toa to Aaron Clark or whatever it is, then I don't mind that. Hubner to Aaron Clark, those are cool, but don't just be like tearing your team apart to get the latest buys, because they're not really must-haves this week unless you missed out on Savala, who is a must-have. And I'll just hit these. Cancel Lucas. That's a really good one, by the way. So I finished saying don't trade, but Cancel Lucas is a fantastic trade. That's awesome. Thomas Cant's been dropped. So obviously you've been forced into the trade with Cant. But other than that, I think it's some of them are a bit luxurious, these trades. So the big thing is I would try not to go below 20 trades this week. That's my other advice. Like if you're going below 20 trades, you're in a bit of a tough situation. Dave Fafita to Ponga or Drinkwater. Oh, Ponga buy. Probably Drinky is the safe one. Ponga's an option like next week or the week after. He's got a huge break even. So with Ponga, wait for the bounce back, and then I don't mind him as a buy at all. And I'm going to do some videos too, guys, this week. I'll do one on with Monty here actually on the buy period as well. So we're going to go through that too. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. And then I got to share this one. This is funny. Alex Twell. To watch yourself, little bro. Whose little bro am I? Darcy, get out of here. Get out of here. I was like, keep Alex 12. He's going to score a try this week. And then Ponga going for 80 this week. I agree, Dom Toretto. I agree. Ponga to pop off this week. So, guys, that's us done and dusted for Teamless Tuesday. It's been a bit longer recently, but I feel like everyone's sort of sticking around. So you must like them. Let me know in the comments as well if you like the long form, like the super long form. I think it's a good chat. But we'll have Buy Hold Sell coming out soon. So Buy Hold Sell comes out 7 a.m. tomorrow. If you're in the Discord as well, you get extra help with your trades and that kind of thing too. So jump on that. The link is in the description. Other than that, I'm going to put out a video on the buy period as well and how to attack that. The general sort of how it works. But if people are asking, how does that work? So I'll start at the very high level, make it really straightforward, and then I'll get into some advanced strategy there too. And a few people asking about my rank. I'm just outside the top 1,000 right now. So I was floating at around the 950s area. And then that Terrell May second stint, I didn't have his captain. I just kept sort of fading back to about 1,200. So I'm good with it. I'm pretty happy. But I'm hoping to get into that top 100 through the origin period, which is normally where I shine. So, let's tear into it. Good luck, guys. See you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.